Hello and welcome back to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and today we are talking about a brand new Trek Domane SLR, a 2023 model that has been leaked on the internet this week. So Paris-Roubaix is a fantastic and exciting race, but also a very unique race for the demands it places on equipment and the riders, and we often see special bikes and special equipment and special setup for this one-day race. And this week will be no exception. Now, we knew a new Trek Domane was on the way because helpfully the UCI has a list of approved bikes and equipment. It's on their website, a PDF, you can check it out as well, link down below in case you want to see it for yourself. And a few weeks ago, I revealed here on the channel that there was a new Trek Domane listed on there, but no details from Trek. They're not going to announce anything until an official press event or whatever they do to launch the bike. But Ben Delaney over at Velo News has reported on the new bike and got some fantastic photos, a scoop on his new bike, and our first glimpse at what appears to be a brand new 2023 Trek Domane SLR. So from these pictures, we can see the details and changes over the current bike and what direction they're taking this endurance bike in compared to where it has been for the last few years. So visually, at least, the bike looks very similar to the current bike and it hasn't really changed much in the 10 years or so it's been around. The underlying technology and design ethos is the same, but some quite fundamental changes, and I think they point towards a bike that will hopefully be lighter than the current model. So firstly, we still have the ISO-speed decoupler, the really neat system of separating the seat tube from the frame to allow the saddle to move back and forth to provide a smoother ride when you're in the saddle. But now there are two key changes. Firstly, the seat mast from the current bike has gone and what appears to be a regular round 27.2mm seat post is in its place. And this might be part of a bigger trend from manufacturers going back to tried and trusted standards. So we've seen on the Domane, for example, a switch from the press fit to a threaded bottom bracket with a T47 introduced on the last model. So a good move in terms of compatibility and standards going forward. Then the other big change is on the current Domane, the level of comfort from that ISO-speed decoupler at the back is adjustable. There's a sort of section on the bottom of the top tube and you can move the slider to make it firmer or softer, but now that's gone. And that's no bad thing in my book, because when I reviewed the Domane SLR about 2 years ago, after trying different settings on that bike, I left it in the softest setting for the whole time I had that bike. So that lack of adjustment appears to be no bad thing. Hopefully it comes with a weight saving, which we'll talk about more in a moment. So quite a big change at the back of the bike. And then if you look towards the head tube, it looks really different to the current bike. And it appears they've removed the ISO-speed decoupler from the front. So on the last bike, 2 generations ago, they introduced a front ISO-speed decoupler. And basically they had a special top headset cap that allowed the stereo tube to bend, as scary as that sounds. And in my opinion, it didn't really work that well. And it appears they got rid of that, perhaps deciding the weight over a regular setup wasn't worth the benefits it gave. And if you want outright comfort from the front of the bike, you can't beat the Specialized Roubaix with the Future Shock compared to the ISO-speed we had on the Trek Domane. So it's a slightly odd move, but I can see why they've done it if it does save weight over the current bike, but they've taken a feature away and a feature that adds comfort over a regular bike and not added something else in its place, like a Future Shock suspension stem or something to add more comfort. So a bit of a backward step in one regard, but more details might reveal something else about this bike that we can't see from the photos. The other big change at the front is the cable routing used to go behind the stem, which is pretty ugly in my opinion, and now goes in front of the stem around the stereo tube. Looks much cleaner, looks much better, and still allows a normal stem and handlebar. So not quite as clean in terms of integration as some bikes, but you can change the stem and handlebar. So perhaps as a bonus on this sort of bike for the sort of person buying a bike where aero isn't the outright concern. You want that adaptability and customization in the fit. And those appear to be the main changes over the current bike, and I assume all other details will carry over unchanged. So the same T47 bottom bracket, the same mudguard mount, fingers crossed, the same down tube storage for your inner tube and multi-tool. And I presume tyre clearance will be the same as the old bike, 38mm wide, and I can't see them making the tyre clearance any wider than 38, because get into 40, 42, then you're basically on a gravel bike. So what can we assume from all the changes that we can speculate on this new frame over the old one? Well, hopefully a decent chunk of weight saving. So the Domane SLR was far from the lightest bike in the endurance category, with even the SLR, the top end model, weighing a claimed 1,335 grams for the frame set with all the hardware attached, which is much heavier than the 950 grams or so for a specialized Roubaix. And when I reviewed that bike 2 years ago, the weight was a factor. Now, weight isn't everything, of course, and weight certainly isn't a factor for Paris-Roubaix, but where the pros ride this bike for 1 day of the year, consumers who buy this bike ride for 365 days of the year and will probably go up and down some big hills and mountains, so weight saving would be a nice thing to see. Now, how much weight saving can we expect? Well, sub-kilo would be good, so that's a good 300 to 400 gram saving. So hopefully that's the sort of target we can expect with a new Domane SLR, 900 to 1,000 grams, and then not much heavier for the SL, the cheaper version with low grade of carbon fibre but same frame features. So those are the details we can speculate from the photo shared by Ben Delaney over at Velo News. I'll put a link to his story down below in case you want to read it. But until Trek makes an official announcement, we'll have to wait until we get all details from them. And I'm not in Trek's best book, so I don't expect to be on the press launch for this bike. So I'll be in the same boat as you, waiting for an official announcement from Trek for all the details on his new bike. So the Trek Domane has come a long way since it was introduced about 10 years ago and developed with Fabien Cancellara, one of the most successful riders in the Hell of the North and the Cobble Classics, and a bike that introduced this ISO-speed decoupler, which Trek have now introduced to their Madone aero bike. I think that Domane is in a tricky position because now with the Madone, which is aero and comfortable with the ISO-speed decoupler, and then the Checkpoint gravel bike on the other side, the Domane is sort of squeezed in the middle. And we're seeing the pros use the Madone for basically all the races and the Domane for one race of the year. And for normal riders, a Checkpoint might be a more versatile, more adaptable option for riding on-road and off-road. And the changes don't appear to really take the Domane in a different direction. It's a refinement perhaps, a bit racier, a bit lighter, perhaps more aero. But they haven't really changed the formula. And yes, the formula still works, but I don't know if it's as relevant to today's normal rider riding in the real world away from racing as it used to be 10 years ago. But let me know your thoughts on this bike down below. Do you think endurance bikes are still relevant, or are you better off buying a gravel bike like their Checkpoint? On the subject of the Domane, we can talk about some other tech trends while we're here as well. Because last year, Lizzie Deignan won the women's race of Paris-Roubaix on a Trek Domane SLR, and it was packed with future technology. So it had a SRAM 1x group set with a small chain device for extra reassurance, and it had wide 30mm tubeless tyres from Pirelli. So tubeless and 1x winning at one of the hardest races in the world. A race that is very particular in its requirements with no climbing to worry about, so very flat, but cobbles are a defining feature of that race and demands it places on equipment and riders. And we also saw Sonny Colbrelli win the men's race on tubeless tyres from Continental. So it's a race where we're really seeing a lot of technology be refined and developed. We've seen endurance bikes like Domane, Cannondale Synapse and Paris-Roubaix be developed and honed at its race over the last 10 years. And now the forefront of technology at its race is tubeless tyres and 1x gearing. On the subject of tyres, last year's race was a big step forward for tubeless, with both the men and women's race won on tubeless tyres, and perhaps a death knell for tubeless tyres at its race where they have reigned for 100 years or so. And Pirelli, the sponsor of both the men and women's Trek race team, have put out some advice for their riders for what tyres to use. So they recommend for Paris-Roubaix, but not just Paris-Roubaix, but all races apart from the climbing stages, to use tubeless tyres for the benefits they offer. And it stipulates for climbing stages, so mountain top finishes, to use a clincher tyre with one of their 35-gram thermoplastic inner tubes. They're really funky looking yellow inner tubes that are super lightweight and super small. So no mention of tubular tyres. It's all about tubeless for the majority of races, and then for climbing stages, clinchers with a plastic inner tube. So how times have changed. So Paris-Roubaix is once again at the forefront of bike technology, and I think these changes and developments will ripple down to normal riders. We've seen that with endurance bikes, disc brakes, and now I see it with tubeless tyres as well. So let me know what you think about the brand new Trek Domane SLR. Is it on your short list? And what do you think of this move towards tubeless tyres at Paris-Roubaix? Anyway, that's all I've got time for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks for watching.